Winterson. Jeanette Winterson CBE, born the 27th of August 1959, is an English writer. Her first book, Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit, was a semi-autobiographical novel about a sensitive teenage girl rebelling against convention. Other novels explore gender polarities and sexual identity, and later ones the relations between humans and technology. She broadcasts and teaches creative writing. She has won a Whitbread Prize for a first novel, a BAFTA Award for Best Drama, the John Llewellyn Rhys Prize, the E.M. Forster Award and the St. Louis Literary Award, and the Lambda Literary Award twice. She holds an Officer of the Order of the British Empire (OBE) and a Commander of the Order of the British Empire (CBE), and is a Fellow of the Royal Society of Literature. Set in 17th-century London, Sexing the Cherry is about the journeys of a mother, known as the Dog Woman, and her protégé, Jordan. They journey in a space-time flux, across the seas to find exotic fruits such as bananas and pineapples, and across time, with glimpses of the present, and references to Charles I of England and Oliver Cromwell. The mother's physical appearance is somewhat grotesque. She is a giant, wrapped in a skirt big enough to serve as a ship's sail and strong enough to fling an elephant. She is also hideous, with smallpox scars in which fleas live, a flat nose and foul teeth. Her son, however, is proud of her, as no other mother can hold a good dozen oranges in her mouth all at once. Ultimately, their journey is a journey in search of the self. Sexing the Cherry is a postmodernist work and features many examples of intertextuality. It also incorporates the fairy tale of the 12 dancing princesses. Jeanette Winterson's Sexing the Cherry has been argued to be an important historiographical novel for women. This novel considers women's role, prominence, or lack of prominence in society within historical fiction. Jeffrey Rossner argues, the focus of feminist historiographers has steadily shifted from recovering the neglected past experience of women to historicizing the patriarchal values that helped produce such experience. In addition to voicing her concern with the hierarchical structures in society, within her novel Winterson encourages readers to think about sex dichotomies as a thing of the past. With her main characters of Dog Woman and Jordan, she achieves a contrasting of the sexes that has been taken into consideration multiple times by scholarly articles such as Rossner's. Sexing the Cherry is a 1989 novel by the award-winning English author Jeanette Winterson. Nominally set in London in a version of the 17th century, the novel fuses the genres of magical realism, postmodernism, interpolated narratives, and intertextual pastiche to create a work that ponders the meaning of time and love. Centered on the relationship between a woman and the foundling boy she raises, and following the ways in which this boy is able to travel both in his actual world and in the world of his imagination, the novel asks which experiences are more real, and which are truer. Building on these themes are images of discovery and rebirth, which are referenced in the novel's title, a term for the botanical process of creating hybrids. The novel's narration switches between the points of the view of its two main characters, Dog Woman and Jordan. We first meet the Dog Woman, a sometimes gentle and other times gleefully murderous giantess who lives by the River Thames. She has forgotten her given name, and now is known by her profession, raising dogs that fight for street entertainment. The Dog Woman's appearance is grotesque. Not only is she enormous, but she is also flat-nosed, nearly toothless, and has huge smallpox scars that house fleas. Her son Jordan is a foundling that she fished out of the Thames and named for a less ridiculous-sounding river. She adores him and takes him for walks on a leash. He is inordinately proud of the fact that she can fit 6 oranges in her mouth. The Dog Woman is strong and has a zest for life, but she is ignorant and somewhat naive. The novel mines comedy from her confusion about human body parts and sexuality, and from the way she comments on what she sees around her. Still, despite the fact that she is an outsized literal giant, a mythical figure, her part of the narrative is the most grounded in reality. The Dog Woman's story takes place during the chaos of the Puritan Revolution of 1641, and the following Civil War. After King Charles I is beheaded in 1649 by anti-monarchists who install Oliver Cromwell as Lord Protector, the Dog Woman feels empowered to also use beheading as a suitable punishment for her own enemies, the Puritans, who attack her livelihood by trying to outlaw dog fighting, gambling, and other amusements for poor people. She suffers through Cromwell's rule, but as soon as the Restoration of 1661 puts King Charles II on the throne, the Dog Woman takes her revenge on the Puritans by organizing a brothel to help her behead her awful neighbors Preacher Scroggs and neighbor Firebrace. Jordan's part of the narration involves travel of the worldly and otherworldly type. When he is still a boy, he falls in love with the sea and spends his time building model ships. The king's gardener, John Tradescant, whose ambitions involve searching the world for novel plants to bring back to England for Charles I, takes Jordan under his wing and teaches him botany. One of the first exotic fruits the two bring back from an ocean voyage is the pineapple, which strikes the English audience as overly sexual, and recalls Jordan's own experience going to see an exhibit of the first banana ever brought to England, a fruit whose similarity to male genitalia thrilled Londoners. After Tradescant's death, Jordan continues traveling, and, even though she assumes that by sailing far into the distance, her son has fallen off the face of the earth, the dog woman always remains Jordan's home and resting place in between trips. Soon, however, Jordan's voyages start to take place entirely in his mind, which generates fantastic people and places for him to interact with. One adventure involves Jordan disguising himself as a woman to learn what women really think about men. Another finds Jordan in a city where people have literally died of love, which spreads like a plague and is now kept at bay by an old jaded prostitute and a wizened monk, who ban love altogether. Unwittingly, Jordan plays a guitar which again unleashes love and kills all of the town's inhabitants except the monk and the prostitute. The novel leaves ambiguous whether Jordan is actually bending time and space to get to these places, or whether they are wholly imaginary. As he mind travels, Jordan speculates about the nature of time, space, and reality, and also love. On an imaginary trip, Jordan glimpses a dancer named Fortunata at a party. Deeply smitten, he starts voyaging specifically to find this woman. On the way, he encounters Zilla and her sisters, who live in a castle and who are the 12 dancing princesses from the fairy tale collected by the Brothers Grimm. Just like in the story, these women would spend each night secretly dancing in a magical palace, but when a prince discovers their secret, they are given away in marriage to his 12 brothers. 11 of the women tell Jordan their stories, all of which have to revolve around the idea that love and passion have very little to do with marriage. In each case, the arranged marriage of the princess has failed, some because the princesses are actually in love with other women, one because her husband was actually gay, one because her husband was constantly unfaithful. After getting rid of their spouses, the women are now happy ever after, living together and pursuing their own desires. At last, Jordan finds Fortunata on the island of Barbados, but after they spend a month together, she sends him away. She prefers to be unpartnered. Once again, Jordan comes back to his ever-loving dog woman mother. The novel now introduces two new characters, who seem to be Dog Woman and Jordan, but reconfigured for the 1990s. Nicholas Jordan dreams of sailing and seeing the world, and he decides that the best way to do this is to join the army, despite the disappointment and concern of his parents. As he gets ready to leave, he reads a newspaper article about an unnamed woman who has made their life's work to call attention to environmental degradation by sitting next to a polluted river. Nicholas decides to find this woman, despite the seeming impossibility. At the end of the book, these two timelines merge, as Nicholas and the woman burn down a factory, which causes the London of Jordan and the dog woman to go up in flames. As Jordan and the dog woman flee, he has hope for the future.